Hey there, all you beautiful souls. I hope your day has been absolutely fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you back for yet another exciting episode of What If Naruto Met Kurama early and they became partners. Don't forget to pay a visit to the author of this captivating fanfiction and show them some love. You'll find the link waiting for you down in the description. If this what if is sparking your curiosity, drop a comment down below and share your thoughts. And while you're at it, don't miss out on exploring the plethora of other intriguing what-ifs available on this very channel. Alright, let's not keep you waiting any longer, let's dive right into this thought-provoking video. Previously, Hiashi, who was feeling every bit of his old age, tiredly stood up and looked out the window at his village, as if this would help him come to a decision. He remained staring at the sun slowly setting beyond the majestic forest surrounding this quiet village for almost an hour, before he finally turned around and buzzed Tammy on the intercom. The coming darkness seemed to signify the Hokage's sober mood. "Get me Hyuga, Hiashi. Tell him this is urgent." Later in the evening in the Hyuga meeting hall. "This is unacceptable, brother. How could you have already agreed to this?" Hisashi exclaimed at his older brother just after Hiashi relayed the Hokage's account of his meeting with the Kumo ambassador. They were standing on the main floor among the top elders from both branches of the clan, as they argued over this development. "Your brother is right. We cannot allow you to be sacrificed. You are the head of the Hyuga clan, the most noble and respected clan in Konohagakure. Even more importantly, we also cannot allow our Byakugan to fall into their hands," cried one elder. "Let the cowards fight us. We will beat them back like we always have done," another elder raged. Hiashi held out a hand for silence. "I appreciate your sentiments. However, we have no choice in this situation. Kumo Gakure has outmaneuvered us completely. Even if we decline the reparations, then go to war and somehow come out victorious, what do you think will happen? This country, weary of conflicts, will blame this clan for this new conflict, and we will lose our reputation and standing. This is my fault, since I have killed the man in blind rage without any thought to the consequences afterward. I have failed one of my own teachings in always accessing any situation with a calm heart and mind. For that, I must pay," Hiashi stated calmly, obviously prepared to meet his fate. "This does not mean you should just give yourself up. You have a responsibility to rule over our clan and ensure its continued prosperity." Hisashi tried to reason with his older brother, but he and the other rebellious elders were suddenly struck silent by a large blast of killing intent. "That is enough. This has already been decided. Our loyalty is to the village first and the clan second. It was, has been, and will always be that way for as long as this village stands. I will not allow myself to be the one person responsible for the possible destruction of our home and our children's future." The clan leader paused to calm himself. "I only came here to inform you of my decision and offer my goodbyes, not to allow any of you to change my mind. I have already spoken of what I need for all of you to do after my death, and I expect all of you to carry out your tasks." Hiashi then directed his gaze at his twin. "The same goes for you too, my brother. You must understand why I have to do this, and I expect you to raise my daughters alongside your son to be strong in my stead. Now, I do not have long, and I wish to spend my remaining time with my daughters before I leave to face my fate. I wish you good fortune after this dark day. Farewell." He finished his speech. He then immediately walked out of the hall, pointedly ignoring several still protesting elders in his wake. Hisashi clenched both of his fists hard enough to draw blood and gritted his teeth. "It is you who do not understand that this clan will fall apart without you. The elders will panic and try to use both your daughters to gain more power and influence with others who would take advantage of the confusion. I cannot imagine them ever being happy when they may be used as political tools any day. Worst of all, I will be powerless to stop all this because of this damnable seal." He almost growled at that thought, before his expression softened some. "I can feel this clan is inching ever closer to the day when this segregation would end, and my son will be one of the first few to be set free. However, I fear that will never come to pass without you as clan head to oversee this. For once, the clan truly needs you more than the village does, and I will go against my own fate in order to save you and this clan, brother." Hisashi left the hall with a determined gait, heading for his house. Hisashi's house, a few minutes later. Hyuga Neji knew something was wrong tonight. His father hadn't come back home yet, and the entire compound was in an uproar. He had a bad feeling about tonight, as if his life would change forever after this. It was just like the night before he lost his mother on her last mission when he was younger. The front door opened swiftly to reveal his grim-faced father entering. Hisashi then immediately went into his bedroom to get changed from his grey robes into a set of pitch black mission robes, as if he was getting ready for a night mission. Neji was watching all of this with increasing trepidation. Is something the matter, father? He tried to get his father's attention, but Hisashi continued his preparations, seemingly ignoring his distressed son. Only when he finished a few minutes later did he turn toward and kneel down in front of the young boy with an expression that seemed to say he was going off to a battle he would not return from. Neji's lips began to tremble, and tears were now streaming down his cheeks. Neji. My son, I need you to know that I am extremely proud of you. Despite that damnable seal on your forehead, you continue to excel and outshine everyone else in this clan. Even your two cousins. It is because of that you will be able to live on and grow stronger even when I am not around. Tonight, I am going out to make a choice I can be truly proud to call my own, after having been mocked by fate my whole life. Hisashi then gripped his crying son's shoulders tightly. Someday, you will be freed from your curse, and you will be able to make any fate your own. In the meantime, continue growing strong, and do your best to protect the clan, and those that are precious to you. Do you understand me? Hisashi implored of his son. Neji was stunned at his father's unusually passionate speech, but he didn't dare say anything for he believed if he did, then his father would take that as the cue to leave and not return. Unfortunately for him, Hisashi continued anyway by tightly hugging his son with a whispered "I love you," before releasing and rising to leave. Neji did not want this, and quickly latched onto his father's leg tightly. No. Father. You can't. His pleading was cut short by his father's soft chakra strike to the back of his neck, completely unseen. He instantly relaxed and fell limp in his father's arms. As he was gently laid on the living room's couch, the last thing Neji saw before his eyes completely closed was his father putting a blanket over him with a serene expression, like how one would put his son to bed any night. Same time at Hiashi's home. Hiashi stared down at his two beloved daughters sleeping in each other's arms in their favorite place, which was a large and very comfortable chair in the living room. Hinata and Hanabi apparently tried to stay up late, because their father was suddenly called away for his talk with the Hokage. They wanted to greet their father when he came home finally, but they fell asleep before that. Hiashi smiled forlornly. He did not want to leave them, but he wouldn't allow them to experience war if he could help it. He reached down to gently rub Hinata's forehead. She shifted a little under the touch and ended up resting her cheek on the top of her younger sister's head. Hanabi was curled up in a small ball on Hinata's lap, her head resting against her older sister's chest. Hiashi let out a shuddering sigh and allowed a tear to roll down his cheek before wiping it away. He would truly miss them, and prayed to every deity out there that they would pull through after his death with his brother helping them out. After a long minute of standing over his sleeping daughters, he gently laid out a blanket over them to keep them warm. After one more reluctant glance, he then quietly left the living room, and was about to make his way out when he was stopped by a female voice. Will you be coming back, my lord? It took all he had to not show visible shock at being addressed out of nowhere. Slowly turning his head to glance in the direction of the voice, he found one of the female branch members, Hyuga, standing off to the side trapped in a simple sleeping yukata, with her arms crossed underneath her ample bust. Her fingers were nervously gripping her elbows. Her long and luscious black hair, reminding Hiashi of Kushina's memorable red hairdo, its incredible length and volume, was braided now for sleeping and hanging loosely over her shoulder. She was an incredibly beautiful woman even for the usually high standards that all Hyuga women easily met. She was also kind and motherly, which was why he personally selected her as the primary caretaker for his daughters after Hitomi's unfortunate death. She did an excellent job raising them since that fateful day, and he had come to truly admire her loving, yet slightly mischievous nature. None of that was present on her terrified expression as he stared unblinkingly at her for a long moment. Yes, I am. That didn't seem to calm her at all as she nodded jerkily with hitched breaths. He didn't think she was convinced at all, and let out a small sigh. Tomo-san, I do not believe I have told you yet that I am eternally grateful to you for helping raise my daughters. I feel we would have been lost without you around, and they truly do consider you to be their mother now, if not by blood at least. Tomo took a shuddering breath as she allowed several tears to escape her pale eyes. You honor me with your kind words, my lord. I truly do feel blessed to have been invited to serve your family, and I can only hope I did Lady Hitomi proud in her stead. Hiashi closed his eyes and smiled fondly at the memory of his deceased wife. Believe me when I say you have done much more than that. Please continue to watch over my daughters. He stated sincerely and bowed his head gratefully to the now trembling caretaker. I must go. My lord. Tama whispered brokenly as she seemed to reach her hand out for him, who was already walking with his head high through the door out of the house. He didn't look back. Letting out a choke sob with her outstretched hand now covering her mouth, the caretaker slowly turned her head to gaze lovingly at her charges, who were still sleeping in each other's arms, looking adorable and peaceful. Your father can be a terrible liar sometimes, she muttered with a faint smile as tears continued to stream down her cheeks. After bowing to the gate guards, Hiashi slowly made his way alone down the long and dark walkway leading from the compound into the village. It was nearly midnight as he slowed his pace. He did not need to be at the Hokage Tower for a good while, and he would enjoy this final stroll before his upcoming death. It was interrupted, however, when he suddenly stopped after a few minutes of walking, and instantly activated his Byakugan. Whomever you may be, you cannot hide from my all-seeing eyes. You may as well come out now, he quietly declared to a nearby lone tree on the side of the road. The tree's dense leaves shook and split open to reveal a black-clad man leaping down upon Hiashi's ready form. Hiashi effortlessly dodged a preemptive palm strike from the landing assailant before he rushed in to disable the man. He would not make the mistake of killing his opponent this time. He would just merely beat this man to within an inch of his life instead. He opened with a blindingly fast flurry of two-fingered chakra strikes, which his attacker easily parried or matched blow for blow. Dancing around each other like a pair of graceful performers, the two combatants descended into a beautiful and almost quiet exchange of blows and parries that went on for a long minute, with neither party landing a successful hit. It wasn't long before Hiashi realized he was facing a gentle fist user. And an excellent one, too. He was also irritated to find that his Byakugan couldn't penetrate through the man's head wrappings, preventing his attacker's identity from being revealed at this moment. Somehow, this man had access to the anti-Byakugan seals usually used by Onbu for their masks. You aim to defy your clan head's wishes. Why? He quizzed tersely as he increased his tempo to try to overwhelm his attacker. The black-clad man remained silent, however, and easily matched his pace, before shoving him back to get some distance. This was so he had room to spring into a fast combo that just barely managed to overwhelm Hiashi's defense, leaving him with a numb right arm. Frowning at his unmoving arm as if it betrayed him, Hiashi snapped back to the attacker with a cold glare as he reared his left arm back. Hakikusho, 8 trigrams vacuum palm. A powerful and precise blast of pure chakra shot out of his palm in the direction of his attacker. However, the black-clad man was prepared and easily somersaulted forward high into the air over the blast. Crack. The blast instead hit the tree the assaulter was just hiding in, breaking the tree's top half off, and it crashed to the ground with a loud thump. Meanwhile, the airborne man easily sailed over his opponent, twisting in the air to avoid one more blast of vacuum palm that continued harmlessly into the night sky. He then landed behind Hiashi, who was already whirling around and striking out to meet this man's assault. However, it was still too much as the assaulter easily rushed in under the strike and deftly disabled his opponent's remaining arm with several more Juken strikes. Hiashi stumbled back with a growl, not willing to give up even with his arm sealed. He tried to spin to activate his Katen, revolving heaven. However, his attacker already anticipated this as he quickly dashed in to gracefully land a flurry of Juken strikes along the length of his left leg. Almost stumbling onto the ground in an undignified heap, Hiashi barely managed to remain standing on his good leg with nothing but the full extent of his pride. He let out a defeated sigh as he watched his attacker relax and straighten up to slowly remove the head wrapping. If I had known it was you from the beginning, I would gone through this scuffle much more carefully and differently. It is rather irritating to have my every move predicted rather effortlessly. The black-clad man finished removing everything, revealing himself as the identical twin of Hiashi. Hisashi. Indeed. That is why I have hidden my identity. It was the only way to defeat you, Hiashi. The clan head snorted slightly as he allowed his brother to gently help him over to the tree trunk he just broke in half a moment ago. Do not patronize me. You have always been slightly more skilled than I. I find that interesting, because I believe the opposite. Hisashi retorted with a small smirk as he helped his twin sit down against the tree trunk in a dignified manner. Hiashi would not be able to get to some help on just one leg without crawling, which would be bad for the clan head's image, so the only thing he could do was to wait and recover his mobility. Hisashi squatted down next to him with a regretful sigh. Forgive me, my lord. I feel I must disobey your orders. Hisashi. Why are you doing this? You know they will not just give up on this. You should not have stopped me, unless you want to be responsible for the death of thousands. Hiashi tried to reason as he stared his brother in the eyes, despite his immobile body. Any conflict with Kumo Gakure will not happen, and I will make sure of it. However, you must live. Your daughters in our clan need you alive more than this village needs you dead. I have decided I will take your place instead to ensure the best possible outcome for both the clan and village. Hiashi's eyes widened slightly as his brother continued. Since I am your identical twin, they will likely not have noticed the switch until after the reparations have been confirmed through the official channels. By the time they discovered the ruse, there would be nothing they could do without making fools of themselves internationally. As a result, we will be able to keep the Byakugan out of their hands. This is what I have chosen to do in order to protect our clan, and especially our own family. Hisashi explained with a determined expression. What if you are wrong and they decide to go to war anyway? You will have died for nothing, Hisashi. What about your son? Hiashi tried to reason once more, his desperate eyes locking with his twin's steady eyes. Hisashi broke eye contact after a moment, slowly stood up over his brother's form, and stared longingly back in the direction of the Hyuga compound. The people in Kumo would have to be imbeciles to go to war over a false body. Deception is a large part of a shinobi's job after all. We just have to get them to think they have won until it was too late. They then would not be able to do anything without looking like fools. Hisashi let out a slightly exasperated sigh before continuing. For a man with all-seeing eyes, you are blind to how much your daughters need you without Hitomi-sama around. Only you would be able to truly ensure their freedom and happiness, since I will not be able to do much as long as I carry this seal on my forehead. Hiashi had to agree with that assessment, but there was no one else he trusted more than his own brother. Neji is mature and capable already, and you know as well I do that he will be able to handle himself just fine. My only request in regards to my son is that you help guide him into becoming a strong and honorable man in my absence. Hisashi finished and smiled like a prideful father at the thought of his son, before his expression turned somewhat sad. Forgive your little brother his selfishness. All my life, I felt like I have been mocked by fate, especially when my beloved son, and once-in-a-lifetime prodigy, was branded simply because I was a few minutes late in our own births. Tonight is probably my one chance to make a true choice. To die the way I choose, doing what I want, which is to ensure the best outcome for the clan, and more importantly, the best future for our children. He spoke thoughtfully while Hiashi could only listen in silence. Before I take my leave, I want you to understand this, Hiashi. I may have resented my fate, but I never resented you at all our entire lives. I will always be proud to have served the true head of our clan, and, more importantly, proud to be your brother. Hisashi ended his heartfelt speech by moving calmly in the direction of the Hokage Tower, never looking back while leaving his final words behind. Goodbye, big brother. Hiashi could only sit in silence, his head following the departing figure of his twin. He already lost his desire to plead for his younger brother's return. How could he continue when he had seen nothing but fierce resolution in those pale eyes? As his immobile body remained propped up against a lonely tree next to this lonely stretch of the dark walkway, his quiet voice carried out into the still midnight air that just barely reached Hisashi's ears. Goodbye, little brother. 15 minutes later in an empty park near Hokage Tower. Wow, that was rough. I took way too long finishing those exercises this time. Naruto thought as he leaned back on a park bench, exhausted from his latest round of exercises. That is to be expected with your body still recovering from this morning's routine. You did well, actually. Tomorrow you will rest both your mind and body. Either spend the day at home or go out with your friends. Kurama decided in the boy's head. He nodded, glad for the brief reprieve. Uzumaki-sama. A voice surprised Naruto into sitting upright on the beach as he snapped toward the source. He saw that it was Hisashi coming into view, easily recognized by the hit eye adorning his forehead. Hisashi-san. What are you doing out here this late? I should be asking the same of you. It is more odd for a young child to be out here compared to an adult merely taking a stroll. Hisashi inquired with a raised eyebrow as he stopped nearby. Naruto put on a sheepish grin and scratched the back of his head. I'm sure you've realized I'm not like most kids. I was just resting after finishing my exercises and was about to go home when you showed up. Hisashi nodded, satisfied with the explanation. I see, Uzumaki-sama. I am on my way to see Hokage-sama for a mission, so I shall see you around. He politely dismissed the conversation as he made to walk past on the way to the Hokage Tower. Naruto had something on his mind he wanted to ask, though. Hisashi-san, if you have time, I have a question. He called out in an apprehensive tone. Hisashi stopped to glance back at the blonde and inclined his head to show he was listening. I was thinking about what you said the other day about your clan's history and the seal. If it was so bad, why hadn't anyone come up with a better seal? Something that everyone in the clan can use to protect the Byakugan without all that pain and control. Naruto carefully inquired in a neutral tone. Hisashi was surprised by this question, and had to take a moment to think over his answer. I am not exactly sure, Uzumaki-sama. My best guess is that, in the beginning, the clan was proud of the seal as it protected their pure bloodline from being stolen and tainted by their enemies. They did not realize the implications that they just laid the foundation for a truly segregated system the clan is using now. By the time the branch members became dissatisfied with the way things have become, the entire clan were already set in their ways. It is now tradition to use the seal, and they all just accepted it as the way of life. I suppose that is why not many have thought about modifying the seal up until now. He offered, and Naruto could only furrow his eyebrows together in deep thought. You know, Uzumaki-sama, you are not the first one to ask me this. Hinata-sama asked me a similar question not too long ago. The Hyuga added. The blonde glanced up at him with a raised eyebrow. Hinata-chan did. So she doesn't like the system either. Hisashi shook his head. She never has. She is kind, does not enjoy having servants, and she hopes to one day see the use of the seal band. Wow. I was going to say that, since I might be Hokage one day, I was going to fight to get this seal band, and have them find another way. However, it looks like it'd be a lot easier when Hinata-chan get to be the next head of the clan, and we could work together. Naruto muttered thoughtfully as he cupped his chin and squinted his eyes fox-like. Hisashi raised an eyebrow and kneeled down in front of the boy to level his pallid gaze with a pair of blue eyes. What makes you believe you might be chosen as the Hokage? I just began training, but I'm going to be the strongest shinobi ever. I have to if I want to protect my precious people. And when you become the strongest shinobi in the village, you become the Hokage, right? It's just natural. Naruto replied as if this was the most obvious thing ever. The Hyuga was instantly reminded of the fourth Hokage at this reply. He raised his other eyebrow, then broke into a chuckle. Naruto was a little unnerved by seeing a compassed Hyuga chuckle heartily. Maybe that's why they wear such stoic expressions. It's pretty disturbing. I agree wholeheartedly. The older man suddenly ruffled the blonde's hair, much to his cry of chagrin, and stood with an amused grin. Uzumaki-sama, you will have to work hard then, since there are many powerful shinobi out there, but I believe you may be able to do it, as long as you have your precious people to think about. My son, Neji, will be incredibly strong, and he might aim for that Hokage seat someday as well. You two may likely end up being rivals. The man had to smirk deviously at the boy's slightly affronted expression at the thought of someone being as strong as him in the future. However, I also have high hope that the two of you will get along eventually and be good friends. Now, I need to go, so be sure to get home safe and have a good evening. Hisashi finished by bowing slightly and turning in the direction of the Hokage Tower to begin walking again. Hisashi-san, can you tell me what this mission is? Naruto quickly blurted out. The older man stopped for a moment and spoke without turning around. I cannot tell you, but I can say it is to protect my own precious people. Goodbye Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto watched the Hyuga disappear into the darkness toward the Hokage Tower, feeling a slight bit uneasy. Boy, let's go home. There's nothing to do out here. Kurama suddenly spoke up. Naruto frowned, but just shrugged and began making his way toward his apartment. The fox was deep in thought, however. That man had the eyes of a warrior who's content with all he did, and is strolling toward his death, as if it was a simple walk in a park. Something is happening tonight, but it's best not to let this boy know just yet. There's nothing we can do right now anyway. In the Hokage's office. The third Hokage sat at the desk, waiting patiently for the arrival of Hyuga Hiashi. In the room with him were two Anbu, one of them Kakashi, and the Kuro ambassador. In the center of the office was a scroll laid out with a large storage seal array. The ambassador was growing nervous by the second, as the other three occupants leveled their glares at him, as if they were wishing for him to slowly die by melting into a puddle. I expect this to be kept quiet. We will deny anything if this comes to light. The Hokage ground out through gritted teeth. The ambassador flinched at the leader's harsh tone before nodding nervously. When you retrieve the body, you will sign this statement that declares you have retrieved your so-called reparations for Kumo ga Kure, and we will not speak of this ever again. Is that understood? The third continued as he pointed at a piece of paper on the desk, his glare intensifying. Believe me, we want to keep this quiet on our ends too. I will sign as soon as I have confirmed it was Hyuga Hiashi himself. The ambassador tried to steel his own nerves against the third's anger, but failing miserably. It felt like eternity for him under the unbearably imposing presences of the two Anbu and the Hokage, until the office's door finally clicked and creaked open to reveal Hisashi Hyuga. It took the Hokage all he had to keep his face cooled in a neutral expression, even with the massive shock he was experiencing. The Anbu were lucky they had their masks on, and it took considerable effort to keep their bodies from showing any reaction. What the hell is going on? Why is Lord Hiashi's twin brother here? Was the singular thought of the three as they easily recognized him by the Hitai, always covering the seal on his forehead. Lord Hyuga Hiashi reporting. Hisashi said shortly with a scowl. The Hokage saw something in the new rival's pale eyes that made him think he should at least play along. He really hoped this man knew what he was doing. You have come, Lord Hiashi. You do understand why you are here, correct? The ambassador asked nervously, visibly relieved at having a distraction, as Hiashi walked to the center of the office. Yes, I am to die and give up my body for my crime of killing one of your retired shinobi for no reason. Let us just get this farce with so I do not have to deal with any of you thieving cowards a second longer. Hiashi retorted dismissively as if the Kumo man was even less than a cockroach to him. The ambassador bristled at the tone and insult but said nothing, not wanting to cause any more problem than necessary when they were so close to their goal. He then took out a photo of the real clan head to compare to Hiashi's visage. The 1 minute the ambassador spent studying and comparing between the photo and the person was the longest ever for Hisashi, the Anbu, and the Hokage. It's a match. Take your hit I-8 off and we will proceed. I'm sure Hokage-sama would prefer to keep the insignia here. The ambassador suggested, and another new bout of tension was rising in the air. They knew they would be found out if Hisashi took the hit tie off and revealed the hidden seal. If it is all the same to you, I am doing this as a duty to protect Konohagakure from an unnecessary war. I would prefer to die knowing I have served my village to the very end, so please allow me to keep my hit I-8 on until after my last breath has left the body. Hiashi coolly replied without missing a beat. The ambassador took a moment to think before silently nodding. Everyone almost exploded with relief, but they had to keep up the charade. Hiashi kneeled formally on the floor next to the ceiling scroll and closed his eyes as if in meditation. A long moment of grave silence persisted in the air, before the dog-masked Kakashi decided to begin preparing for the inevitable. However, the Hokage stopped him. I will do this one. It is my responsibility, since I allowed this to happen. He grimly said as he slowly moved behind Hiashi and took a small quick injection syringe from the Anbu. He then gripped the kneeling man's shoulder tightly and leaned his head down next to his ear. I am really sorry for allowing this. You will receive the highest honors, and your clan will forever remember you as a hero. He whispered, his voice breaking slightly. Hisashi only nodded once with a serene expression before he felt a small prick at the base of his neck. He felt a calming numbness overtake his entire body almost all at once. It was welcoming actually. His last thoughts were of his older brother and Isis, his deceased wife, and finally, his son. He let a small smile grace his face. In just 3 seconds, his body fell limp in the Hokage's grip, devoid of all life. Hyuga Hisashi had just passed away instantly and painlessly as a hero to his clan and village. Sarutobi Hiruzen silently and gently laid the body down onto the ceiling array with trembling hands. After a moment of silence out of respect, he slowly removed the Hitai to reveal that the seal disappeared, having already worked its magic sealing Hisashi's Byakugan and all of his secrets. The people in Kumo Gakure would not be able to learn anything from this man's body now. The third then sealed the body into the scroll with a loud proof. The ambassador silently walked over to the desk to sign the statement. As he set the pen down and turned around, he cried out in surprise as a hand suddenly grabbed him by the neck and swung him into a wall, cratering it inward. The ambassador was trying to let out a strangled cry of protest when he was frozen solid by the Hokage's glare and killing intent. Hiruzen's face was old and wrinkled, but his eyes looked virulent, cold, and calculating, as if they were the eyes of Shinigami looking at its newest soul to eat. The ambassador felt like he truly would die any moment just looking into his powerful gaze. You may have won, but this will be the last time. After tonight, no Kumo ambassador or shinobi is welcome here until further notice, unless absolutely necessary. That means you will leave the village's premises within 10 minutes of this conversation, or I will have you imprisoned for open hostility. In addition, if I ever see one single Kumo nin set foot anywhere in our country without express permission from our people for any reason at all, you tell your Raikage I will personally come and show them exactly why I have lived this long, and why I am known as the Kami of Shinobi. The third Hokage spat out before he harshly tossed the terrified ambassador to the floor with a loud crash. The whimpering man thought of nothing but escaping as he frantically scrambled to his feet, grabbed the scroll, and ran out the office as fast as his feet could carry him. It was as if the Shinigami was breathing down his neck. Follow him all the way out to the lightning border, and make sure he can't even stop for rest. In addition, send someone out to the Hyuga compound to deliver the news and ask for an explanation. The third growled as the two Anbu bowed and vanished. He was not relieved that they might have protected the Hyuga clan's secret. He was still angry that he still sacrificed a life to supposedly protect thousands. It did not matter if it was a nobleman or a servant. A person's life was still lost this day, and he had to allow it on his watch without any resistance. All the emotions Sarutobi Hiruzen kept in all day finally overflowed as he yelled in rage and smashed his fist on the desk, splitting it in two. The next morning, Naruto noticed something was different in the air around the village. Life went on as normal to most people, but to him, he could feel that something was somewhat off. He relayed his feelings to his tenant as he was walking around, enjoying the morning air. Stop by the tower if you want. Maybe that old fart knows. Kurama only had this suggestion to offer. Naruto, having nothing else to go on, decided to detour to the tower anyway. He entered, made his way up the stairs, and was led in by Tammy. The blonde was surprised to see his surrogate grandfather, sitting behind what looked like a new desk, looking so old. The third was exhausted, having been up all night dealing with all kinds of emotions. He felt and looked defeated. He was so deep in thought he did not notice Naruto entering the office at first, and raised his eyebrows in surprise. Oh, hello, Naruto-kun. What can I do for you? He tried to pull himself back together and keep some semblance of a facade up. Nothing, Hokage Jiji. It's just that I haven't seen you in a while, and I figured I'd stop by for the permit and chat a little. Though, it looks like you have been through a ringer lately. Naruto pointed out, seeing the old man wince slightly. So I think I'll just pick up the permit and leave to do other stuff for the day. He added for the third's benefit. The tired old man sighed and looked somewhat grateful for this thoughtfulness. He got up to retrieve the prepared permit out of a folder and passed it on to the boy. They were about to exchange goodbyes before Naruto remembered something. Hokage Jiji, before I go, I was wondering if you know something about Hyuga Hisashi. I ran into him last night near here. He told me he was coming here for a mission. Something to protect his precious people. I was wondering if he's okay now. The Hokage stiffened with a grim expression, and that was all he needed to see. His entire inside became ice cold as his bluer eyes turned icy and shrank to small dots. Don't tell me, was all he could squeeze out in trepidation. The third's expression softened into sadness and simply shook his head no. I am sorry, Naruto-kun. I will tell you he died very bravely and with honor for what he believed in. He had no regrets. Beyond that, I cannot tell you the details myself. It is up to Lord Hiashi to offer more if you still wish to know. The suddenly fry-looking man tiredly admitted. He knew. Naruto whispered before his face twisted into anger, his blue eyes still icy. The third narrowed his eyes in confusion. He knew. He knew already he was going to die. That's why he talked to me like that last night. Why did you let him go? If you knew it was going to happen, why didn't you protect him like a Hokage was supposed to? The boy shouted at his surrogate grandfather in tearful rage. He didn't want to stick around to hear any excuse and sprinted out of the room, leaving a crushed old man behind. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. You will come to learn this is easily the worst part of being a Hokage. The exhausted and crestfallen village leader quietly whispered to no one in particular. Later at the Nara compound. Nah, was all Naruto made out from a very far-away voice in his dazed confusion. He just couldn't seem to stop going over what happened with the Hokage this morning in his mind. It was like an infinite loop. Naruto, yelled a voice that was very close by, and it finally shook him out of his dazed thoughts with a dumb expression. He took a look around to see he was sitting across a shogi table from a familiar lazy-looking pineapple-haired boy his age, Shikamaru. Naruto then quickly remembered he spent an hour sulking and holding back tears after berating his surrogate grandfather. Afterward, he ate something he didn't even remember now and walked aimlessly round the village just for something to take his mind off what happened. He then ran into his friend on the streets. Shikamaru noticed something was wrong and offered for his blonde friend to come over to his place to cheer up. Now, the brown-haired boy was putting on an annoyed expression as he muttered troublesome and pointed down at the table, which had a match in progress. Sorry Shika. I've been out of it lately. Naruto mumbled pitifully as he moved one of his white pieces without a thought. His friend's eye twitched in annoyance at the new move and went into the thinking pose for the 5th time in this match, if he had been paying attention and kept count. "Oh, I got you thinking now. Guess that's somewhat a personal victory for me now," he remarked half-heartedly as he tried to clear the cobwebs from his head. Shikamaru raised a twitching eyebrow. "This isn't the first time you forced me to do this. Troublesome. It looks like you're truly an idiot savant if you just don't pay attention at all while playing shogi," he muttered grouchily as he came out of his pose and moved one of his black pieces. "Oi. I resent that remark." Naruto grunted indignantly as he moved one of his own pieces without another thought again, and took one of his opponent's pieces. Shikamaru growled in frustration and went back into his thinking pose once again. "You know, you just proved his point. I have never seen such sloppy play, but you just keep getting out of trouble against vastly superior strategies. It's like what you are doing is organized chaos. In my thousands of years existing, this is simply astonishing." Kurama offered her thoughts in clear awe. "Not you too, Fox." Naruto groaned mentally. "Troublesome. Remind me to never challenge you to a match when you're in a bad mood. This is hard on my brain." Shikamaru grumbled as he moved one of his pieces into position to be sacrificed. Naruto furrowed his eyebrows at that move, and wondered what his friend thought of sacrifices. "Hey Shika. What would you think if you had to sacrifice your own life for a cause? Would you be angry at the person who asked you to do it?" Naruto quietly asked, his eyes staring down at the table. Shikamaru stared at his blonde friend silently for a long moment. "That's an odd question to ask a kid, you know. If you want me to answer that seriously with what I know, I would say that the only reason I'd be angry with the person asking me to sacrifice myself is if I knew there were other options. Other ways of solving whatever troublesome situation I was dragged into. However, if it was the only choice and I was saving the people I cared about, I may find it troublesome, but I'd accept it with a clear conscience." The Nara heir replied with a sigh. Intrigued, Naruto thought over that answer as he moved his own piece to take his opponent's sacrificial pawn. Shikamaru capitalized on the trap he set and took advantage. "You know, Naruto. It's troublesome to say this," he murmured as he effortlessly took another one of his opponent's pieces. "But my dad told me this when he first began teaching me shogi. He said that in many ways, a shinobi's life is almost like a game of shogi. You use strategy, tactics, traps, and sometimes sacrifices to win your battles. The only reason we do all of this is because we have to protect our king no matter what." Naruto was still deep in thought as he carelessly made another move that Shikamaru was prepared for. "Our king? I guess that'd be the Hokage," he asked as his eyebrow twitched in annoyance with his growing disadvantage in this shogi match. His friend just shrugged. "I asked Dad that, and he was being troublesome about it, saying that we decide who or what is our king that we absolutely must protect at all costs." The pineapple-haired boy replied offhandedly as he moved one of his pieces for a checkmate and called it. Naruto just groaned and cursed. "Damn it. You win. For the 68th time in a row. Anyway, I wonder what Hokage Jiji considers to be his king," he muttered as he properly put his pieces away. "I think that's a question that shouldn't be troublesome even for you to answer." Shikamaru raised his eyebrow as he cleaned his side of the table. His friend smacked his forehead loudly. "The village and everyone in it. Of course." He smirked and muttered troublesome blondes before rising. "Oi, you want to stay for lunch? Mom will be glad to have you over." He shrugged as if he didn't care if his friend stayed or not. Naruto's stomach growling was the answer. Several hours later, outside in the clan's district. "Remind me not to go back there for a meal, Kurama. Yoshino-san didn't go easy on me with the etiquette lessons today." Naruto groaned tiredly as he left the Nara compound. "She's doing you a favor. What she was trying to show you today was how to eat properly with nobles. Everyone and their mothers know you're a favorite of the Hyuga clan head now, and that bossy female probably figured she'd get started on helping you impress anyone if you were invited to any formal dinner." The demon fox reasoned. "I guess I can live with that. It's just that I'll never understand why there were 4 different forks. And 3 different glasses. I'm underage and I can't even drink 2 of them, anyway." The boy and the fox continued chatting within as he walked his usual route past the Hyuga compound. The blonde took a moment to pull out of his inner conversation to check things out at the front gate. He saw the guards were dressed in all black, and he could feel that the entire clan's mood was subdued even from outside the compound. He then bowed his head in condolences toward the guards. A little surprised, they returned the bow nevertheless. The boy then continued past at a slow pace, deciding he would give it a few days before it was alright to stop by. Uzumaki Naruto. A tight voice rang out from behind. Turning around in confusion, Naruto's eyes landed on a lone and slightly larger boy standing in the middle of the walkway 10 meters away. He was dressed in all black with his long black hair tied together in a loose ponytail, and the blonde saw that he had the pale eyes of the Hyuga clan. He looked like his whole body was tense with coiled up anger. They stood staring at each other in silence for a long moment. One boy was trying to figure out who this Hyuga was, and the other was trying to burn holes through his blonde counterpart with blazing eyes. "Yeah, that's me. I don't think we've met," Naruto inquired with a confused eyebrow. The boy quickly shifted into an aggressive kata of the gentle fist. "You do not need to worry about my name. You will not need it after this," the boy snarled as he sprinted toward the bewildered blonde with killing intent. "Naruto. He intends to kill you. Just get away. You can't beat him now," Kurama yelled into her container's mind. Naruto was so flabbergasted by the situation and the yelling that he just stood there as he took the angry boy's first strike square in his throat. The blonde was blown back, spitting out blood as he went down hard on his back. He was in so much blinding agony just trying to breathe and clutching at his throat that he didn't notice the long-haired boy had moved to stand over his body and began a flurry of two-finger strikes of many tenketsu all over him. He could do nothing but scream hoarsely with blood coming out of his mouth, as even more incredible agony slowly enveloped his entire being, while his attacker continued the enraged assault. Finally the angry boy stopped and straightened up, breathing heavily. "Uzumaki Naruto, I have left your vitals for last, because I want to make you understand that you will suffer as long as possible for my father's death." The boy growled down at the battered blonde. Realization finally struck Naruto. "You're Neji." He painfully tried to get out through his blood-flooded throat, as his entire body continued to scream in agony, not being able to move at all. The long-haired boy, now named Neji, flinched at hearing his name, and narrowed his eyes angrily. "Who told you that?" he snarled, his Byakugan blazing. "Hisashi. Guh," was all Naruto could force out before he was struck hard in one of his kidneys. The pain he felt before was nothing compared to now, and he nearly passed out from shock. "Don't you dare say that name in my presence. You do not deserve that honor. It's your fault my father sacrificed himself in his brother's place. If you hadn't interfered with the fate of a weak person like my cousin, it wouldn't have led down a different path toward the death of someone truly strong, like my father." Neji spat out, his eyes blazing even harsher. Naruto, despite the extreme agony, frowned. "How can you say that about Hinata?" He pushed out through the pain, more dark blood pouring out of his mouth. "She is weak. I have decided that weak people like you and her should not interfere with the fates of the strong." The Hyuga replied with a sneer. "Bullshit. You should be protecting her, arg." Naruto screamed out and gurgled again as Neji slammed a charka strike into his left lung. "A weak and dead person does not get to tell me anything." Neji's face darkened ominously before he prepared to go for the finish. "Naruto, we're going to have to break your promise with that old fart. I'm going to pump my charka into you. A lot of it. You're not ready and you may go berserk with the power, but it's the only chance." Kurama was cut short by an ear-splitting scream of agony that was not coming from the Naruto, but from the Hyuga boy instead. Neji was screaming at the top of his lung to the high heaven as he clutched at his forehead tightly, and was about ready to tear his hair out. He fell down next to his blonde victim and flopped like a fish in unbearable pain. Naruto was stunned and utterly confused at this abrupt change in the situation, until he noticed an approaching man wearing the same black funeral robe as Neji. It turned out to be Hyuga Hiashi holding one of his hands up in a seal. He also looked pissed as hell. The boy quickly connected the dots. The clan head had just activated Neji's caged bird seal to stop him. "That's enough. Please." He tried to force out as loudly as he could, and was relieved when he saw Hiashi release the hand seal a second later. Neji's screams ceased abruptly, and he was now gulping for air, apparently unconscious. The Hyuga clan head glared at one of the gate guards nervously approaching the three. "Get this. Moronic boy to confinement and leave him there for a month. No visitors except for me." He snapped harshly as he made his way over to Naruto and kneeled down. The guard quickly scooped up Neji's unconscious body and carried him away into the compound, while the clan head then activated his Byakugan to scan the blonde's body for any major damage. "Nothing looks fatal and you are already beginning to recover, thanks in no small part to your." Naruto noticed the pause about his tenant. "Incredible healing most likely, Uzumaki-san. You were fortunate when the guards reported my nephew running out after you a few minutes ago, and I decided to investigate. I think this is what you call a case of deja vu, since I've had to look over you the other night as well. Hiashi spoke softly as he continued to scan the body. Naruto had to hold back a chuckle. Please don't make me laugh. I hurt all over. He grunted with a pained smile. That is what most people generally say after their first time facing the gentle fist. I truly apologize for this unforgivable behavior from one of my clan members. Hiashi said sincerely with his head bowed, before letting out a weary sigh. I could have you rest inside or have you transported to the hospital on our expense if you wish, Uzumaki-san. I think I'll recover soon enough, so I'll wait wherever you put me if it's okay, and thanks. Naruto was now beginning to speak more clearly as he got used to the pain. He groaned a little when Hiashi picked his limp body up carefully and carried him into the compound toward the largest and most luxurious-looking house, sitting on the right side of the long reflecting pool this time. Good thing this guy arrived in time to save you. The alternative would have made the entire village crap their pants with the feel of my released chakra alone, and then converge on us with pitchforks and torches. Though I'm disappointed somewhat, since that stupid brat just barely avoided being pasted across the compound wall like graffiti. For now, I'm pumping my chakra into you a little more than normal, so you should recover sooner. He sure did a number on you, and it's surprising you haven't fainted from the pain yet. Kurama spoke up from inside. Sorry to make you feel my pain. We're sharing a link, right? You said you'd feel what I feel. Naruto thought guiltily as Hiashi opened the door to his house. Oh, you needn't worry. I didn't tell you I could turn any of our shared senses off at any time. I keep that particular link off most of the time, since you only seem to attract trouble. The Great Fox replied dismissively, and Naruto was twitching his eye non-stop. Give me back the apology and the sadness I actually felt for your possible pain. Damn lucky fox. The boy huffed while his tenant snickered. Hiashi arrived in the living room and carefully set the boy in his arms down on the carpeted floor, quickly removed the blood around Naruto's mouth with a damp towel, gave him some water to clear out anything in his still recovering throat, and procured a blanket and pillow. Uzumaki-san, you may rest here for as long as you need. I do have business to take care of, so I will need to take my leave. My daughters should be home soon. Just explain your situation to them if you are awake and all should be well. Hiashi explained with an incline of his head. He was about to leave when Naruto stopped him. Hiashi-sama, I should tell you I already know about my tenant, so you don't have to tiptoe around it. Hiashi blinked at this. And I'm sorry about your brother's death. I can tell you two were close from the other day. He forced himself to speak without stuttering in pain. His host allowed a sad nod after a moment's pause. We shall speak more of this when you recover. For now, just get some rest and I shall be back before too long. The clan head replied as he stepped out. Naruto decided to heed his host's suggestion and closed his eyes. 3 hours later, Naruto could still be heard gently snoring away on the floor. The relative silence of the living room was finally broken by the front door, sliding open to admit two young girls wearing all black, one clearly older than the other by several years. Ni-chan, can we play games after dinner? Hanabi childishly asked as she tugged at the sleeve of her older sister's black kimono. Hinata sadly smiled and rubbed a hand on her younger sister's head. I don't think we should do that so soon yet, Hanabi-chan. This is a day of mourning for our uncle. She replied as the girls made their way further into the living room. Hanabi had an impatient scowl on her face before it turned into curious scrutiny as she noticed Naruto on the floor. Who is that? She pointed at the boy. Confused, Hinata just followed the direction her little sister was pointing in and yelped in shock as she noticed the still form of her savior. Naruto-kun. She cried as she immediately kneeled by the blonde and activated her Byakugan to see what was wrong. She gasped in shock as she observed what looked like minute amount of the same red chakra she saw the other night, mixing in with Naruto's dense and dark blue chakra inside the body. She also noted some of his tenketsu were recently closed forcefully, but was also relieved that they were slowly opening back up. He was attacked by one of us. What happened? She worriedly thought as Hanabi kneeled down next to her. Naruto. The one who beat that bad guy. Hanabi inquired as she searched over every inch of the boy with her gaze. Hinata only nodded in response, and the little girl grinned wide. Then I'll call him Wani-chan, since he saved you. Despite the serious situation, Hinata had to smile at her little sister's antics. Hanabi was already taken with Naruto apparently. While the girls were contemplating how the blonde ended up injured and resting in their home, their father had just entered the living room, back from whatever business he was taking care of. I see you have discovered our surprise guest, my daughters. Hiashi announced, surprising the two girls with his voice. Hanabi recovered quickly, ran up to her father, and latched onto his leg cutely. "Father, why is Wani-chan here?" she somewhat demanded as Hiashi patted the top of her head. He had to hide his smirk at his youngest daughter, already calling his new favorite blonde such an affectionate nickname. He wouldn't have to worry about both of his children getting along with Naruto now. He also noticed Hinata had the same expectant look on her face as her little sister, awaiting his explanation. Uzumaki-san was attacked by a stupid young boy with a misguided grudge about his father's death. He was unable to move, so I decided to have him rest here until he recovers. He finally admitted with his eyes closed in exasperation. Neji-san did this. Why would he blame Naruto-kun for uncle's death? Hinata's stutter disappeared mid-sentence as she showed a flash of anger in her eyes. Hiashi did not miss this. This boy is already doing wonders for Hinata's self-confidence. Note to self. Fabricate reasons to get them together more often from now on. He thought offhandedly as he prepared his response. It was a misguided decision on my nephew's part to direct his anger about the loss of this child. Unfortunately, I do not think he will ever let this go until they meet in battle in the future and finish it. He spoke with resignation in his voice. Oh no. That's terrible for Naruto-kun. Hinata whispered as she dreaded the thought of her new friend being hurt again, especially by one of her relatives. Hanabi showed an angry yet cute expression as she devised plans to tell Neji off for this. I am going to prepare some dinner since Tomo-san has the day off. In the meantime, please leave Uzumaki-san to sleep in peace and get changed for tonight. Hiashi requested of his daughters, and they obeyed with Hinata leaving the blonde alone somewhat reluctantly. Some time later, Naruto smelled something lingering in the air before he slowly opened his eyes. It smelled like curry. On that cue, his stomach growled loudly. His eyes opened wide quickly at that sound and sat up, only feeling a little tender from his earlier beating. He glanced around to see he was still in the living room, which was now dark, and noticed Hiashi through the only lit doorway nearby. The man was kneeling at a desk in the room beyond. It was apparently a study and he looked like he was busy looking over a large collection of papers and scrolls. Looking around a little more, he heard what sounded like very cute snoring from nearby. Following the sound, he saw two girls cuddled together in the large living room chair just a few feet from him. They were wrapped in a blanket, and he saw one of them was Hinata. The smaller girl curled up in her arms must have been her younger sister, Hanabi. They seemed to have fallen asleep waiting for something. Maybe for him to wake up. Uzumaki-san, now that you are awake, I would be most pleased if you replenish your energy with your portion of the dinner I made, which is being kept warm in the kitchen stove. Please take your time eating before joining me in the study when you are finished. Do not concern yourself over cleaning up afterward. Hiashi's calm voice carried out into the living room, being quiet enough as not to wake either of the two girls. He hadn't turned his head around at all the entire time, as he continued to go over the paperwork on his desk. Naruto decided to quietly do just what his host suggested. 10 minutes later, after eating some of the most delicious curry he ever tried, he quietly stepped into the study, and his host finally glanced up from the paperwork. Please close the door and have a seat, Uzumaki-san. Hiashi gently requested of his guest as he gestured with his hand toward a spot across the desk. Naruto quickly complied as he quietly slid the office door close, before moving to kneel down opposite the clan head, who took a moment to clear his throat. I want to apologize on behalf of the entire clan for Neji-san's unprovoked attack against you. I have no excuse for his misguided anger upon you. Hiashi regretfully said as he deeply bowed his head. Naruto frowned as he thought for a moment. Hiashi-sama, is there really a need for an apology? He replied softly while Hiashi raised his head in mild surprise. He continued quickly. Neji-san did say I was responsible for the events that led to your brother's death. What if that's right? Utter nonsense. If that was actually true, then if my brother had not taken my place, you would be responsible for my death instead. If you had allowed the Kumo-nin to leave without any resistance, then you would be responsible for my daughter's unthinkable fate. There is simply no way to know what could have happened with the infinite amount of scenarios this entire event could have played out. My nephew lost his mother early in his life, and now just lost his father. In his grief, he apparently decided to direct his anger at someone, and you were unfortunate enough to be the target. I shall reprimand him most severely for this, and ensure he stays away from you until he calms down. Hiashi assured his guest. Hiashi-sama, I'd appreciate it if you just let Neji-san be, and if he still wants to take his anger out on me in the future, let it happen. Train him more for it, even. I'll take it all and beat it back tenfold into him until he finally moves on. Naruto declared with a steady voice after a moment's thought, stunning the clan head. You should understand that he is the most promising prodigy of this clan in generations. He is much stronger than my brother and I when we were his current age. He was not joking about killing you. He will do it whenever he finds a chance. He pressed. That's fine with me, sir. With the training I just started, I'm going to be the strongest shinobi ever someday. I want to protect my friends and I can't do that if I'm too weak. I think it definitely will be a good match when we eventually meet. The blonde replied with a confident smile, showing no trace of hesitation in his blue eyes. Hiashi had to wonder if this child in front of him was way too mature for his age, or just simply excited about the prospect of a rival. Nevertheless, I will not allow any duel between you and my nephew within this compound, and I will inform him any further unprovoked attempt on you will be punished more severely. The two of you will have to find a way to get an official match outside of this compound, and that likely would not happen unless you both are enlisted in the shinobi force. I will not allow any less. Is that understood, Uzumaki Naruto? He spoke sternly as he narrowed his eyes at the blonde boy. Perfectly clear, Hiashi-sama. Naruto accepted with an incline of his head before continuing. I hope this happens and he lets it all out. I'd hate for him to continue being angry with me for long, since Hisashi-san hoped we'd get along when we talked last night. He muttered sadly. Hiashi raised his eyebrow at the mention of his brother. Uzumaki-san, you have met my twin brother last night. Naruto nodded and quickly relayed what transpired between him and Hisashi in the park outside the Hokage Tower. A long moment passed as Hiashi seemed to contemplate this. I see. I am glad he seemed calm and ready. I was worried he may have had regrets since this all happened suddenly. The clan head finally said with a sigh of relief. Naruto decided to satisfy his curiosity. Hiashi-sama, if it is okay. I wasn't told by anyone exactly what happened. I'd like to understand his actions. He asked with some apprehension. Hiashi allowed himself a small grin as he nodded and explained everything that happened. 30 minutes later, Naruto was clenching his fists tightly in anger. Those Kumo bastards. That's not fair. They can't get away with this, even if they didn't get the Byakugan. The boy growled through gritted teeth before his expression softened with realization. I just understood he did all this to protect his king. This wasn't because he served the clan or the Hokage. I need to apologize to Hokage Jiji-sun. He muttered sadly, feeling immensely guilty for yelling at his grandfather figure so harshly. Hiashi raised an eyebrow. The shogi analogy the Nara clan likes to use. In my opinion, it is a somewhat rigid description of a shinobi's situation in many cases, but I understand where you are coming from. Most of us have our king we are willing to protect with our lives. Hisashi most certainly did it for that reason alone, and I was willing to do anything to protect my king too before he took my place. You should understand Hokage-sama did not order either one of us to die for the village. I immediately offered myself upon hearing Kumo's demands, and it is only because my brother's desire to protect his loved ones was slightly greater than mine that I am still here and alive in front of you. Hiashi said thoughtfully as Naruto nodded soberly, his eyes downcast. It's still not fair. Kumo's going to get away with meaningless murder, and there's nothing we can do about it. The boy grumbled before looking up. At that moment, an ice-cold shiver went down his spine as he saw a truly malicious and devious smirk growing on the clan head's face. It was a truly terrifying thing to behold on one of the most powerful people in Konoha, and the young blonde had a feeling that someone was going to regret ever crossing this man very soon. I dare say that I have doubts that Kumo Gakure is going to get through this without any consequence, if all have gone as planned. Great minds think alike, and my younger brother had the exact same plan as I did when I was preparing to meet my death. I have seen a glimpse of what he was preparing with my eyes when he disabled me. I will say it was a good thing we regularly studied up on all diplomats' mannerisms and personalities, and I am confident that bumbling fool from Kumo would not check closely for anything on the body. It would be safe to assume that not getting the Byakugan will not be the only surprise for our dear friend, the Raikage. Hiashi replied smoothly with the malicious smirk still plastered on his face. That expression was not even directed at Naruto, yet the boy was wide-eyed with terror at seeing this man's visage. He knew it would haunt his dreams for a while. A certain fox inside him shivered with excitement, her hackles rising slightly down her spine. Kumogakuren Raikage Tower. The exhausted and battered ambassador had just returned from Konoha, and in record time too. A was displaying an amused smirk as the man told him about his harrowing experience with the Hokage's rage and the Anbu, as he was chased and hassled by two of them all the way to the lightning's border. A few minutes ago, the large and muscular man handed the scroll with the clan head's body off to a lab assistant for processing down in the tower's basement. He should be getting news soon. To be honest, he should have been more ecstatic about this victory for Kumo, but he could not help but feel a little uneasy about something. He tried to dismiss it as the occasional paranoia, but a good shinobi simply did not survive long without being cautious. "Boy, did you actually check for any seal on the Hyuga body?" he suddenly asked the ambassador out of nowhere. "Yes, I did. On the forehead, right. It wasn't there when they removed his hit I-8. The ambassador replied. A scowled. There was that paranoia rearing its ugly head, and it was here to stay. Was this before or after death? Our reports on the seal says that it will disappear shortly after death. He replied with deadly calmness, having a feeling he knew the answer. The ambassador gaped at him in stunned horror, and his mouth flapped like a fish with no sound coming out. The Raikage clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, just as the feeble man finally spoke. It was after death. Gah. He choked out when the fourth Raikage moved with insane speed to grab him violently by his neck. The huge man loomed large over him, leaning in close with an angry snarl. You goddamn fool. That was why they easily let this happen with only token resistance. That clan head had an identical twin that was branded and could have easily substituted with him. The clan head also has never been known to wear any type of hit I-8 inside the village. And you signed the fucking paper confirming that this body is Hiashi Hyuga, not his twin. Now we can't even raise some uproar about this, else we look like the jackasses here, not them. You're the worst ambassador ever. He raged at the man shrinking and shrinking in his grip with each word. He groaned in disgust at this man's cowardice and stupidity, before swinging the now former ambassador around to throw him out through one of the floor-to-ceiling window panes at the back of his office. It shattered with a thunderous crack, and the mountain wind blew in harshly, blowing papers everywhere and ruffling A's Raikage Haori. The large man grunted and spat out the window as he listened to the man's scream fading 20 stories down. A faint thud followed. He didn't care if the man survived or not as he sat down in the chair and leaned back with the wind buffering his tightly wound platinum blonde cornrows around, resignedly awaiting the bad news from the lab, as he rubbed his temples in preparation for an incoming migraine. What he did not expect was a massive explosion shaking the entire building. It even shook him out of his chair. After the explosion died away, he immediately rose to his feet and gritted his teeth. He figured he could guess where exactly the epicenter was as he turned his lightning armor on with a shroud of crackling lightning covering his entire body. In the next instant, the office's door was obliterated into tiny pieces as the Raikage charged through, tearing up a gouge in the floor underneath him, as he instantly flickered to the stairwell. Using a combination of amazing acrobatics and his armor's super speed, he bounded like a lightning down the 20 flights of stairs to the basement level. He made the basement door his next victim as he skidded to a stop upon arrival. He had just gone down 20 stories from his office to the basement in under 5 seconds total. It was chaos. Half the people were running around in panic, and the other were running damage control with smoke, fire, body parts and broken equipment everywhere. An entire room in the center of the basement level had all of its walls blown out into other rooms. They then deactivated his lightning armor, and glanced at a bruised and battered person sitting next to him on the floor, who just became aware of the Raikage's arrival. What happened here? He asked with a neutral tone, and his gaze was steady on the destruction, though he probably already knew. A very powerful time delay explosive tag. Hidden on the Hyuga specimen. It was activated when he appeared. Out of stasis from the scroll. The disheveled lab worker stammered in broken sentences as he tried to shake off his daze. The large man sighed heavily. Totally exhausted with everything. He tried everything and still lost, yet he could not even bring himself to get angry with this. He brought this on himself by trying to deal a cheating hand. They just returned the same favor tenfold, and he was the one worse off in the end. He would bet the Hokage never knew of this. It was likely prepared by this Hyuga on his own. He might as well cut the losses now before it got silly between the two villages. The fourth Raikage of Kumo Gakure let out a defeated groan as he began helping the people in the basement level deal with the destruction. At least he had a very solid reason to tell the council to back the hell off about kidnapping more Kekkei Genkai holders. Back with Naruto and Hiashi. Naruto stared at the clan head unblinkingly with mouth agape and eyes wide open. The fox was very impressed, which was saying a lot. Hiashi's devious smirk had been replaced by a neutral grin, as if the last few minutes were forgotten. Hiashi-sama, if I may speak freely. Your brother was a vicious and evil bastard. Same goes for you too. Naruto muttered bluntly in awe. I did not get far in my political and shinobi career without some measure of trickery and backstabbing. I know better than anyone else that I am a vicious and evil bastard, and my brother deserved that description even more. Even in his death, he will remind them not to trifle with our clan again, or they would pay a toll even heavier next time. Hiashi replied calmly as he continued to gaze over some more paperwork. Naruto had to let out a chuckle. Just how the hell did either of you get your hands on some demo class explosive tags? Even a kid like me know they were very heavily restricted after the last war. He quizzed curiously. Hiashi just turned and stared at the boy in silence with a blank expression for a long moment, as if he was waiting for the young blonde to just get it. He did finally get it and gave a sheepish grin. Right? Powerful political figure with friends in high place. Naruto pointed out the obvious with an embarrassed chuckle. They allowed a comfortable silence to settle in the study, as Naruto went over what he learned for a minute. He finally decided it was getting late and he needed to get home. Hiashi-sama, I should get going. Its lady was about to politely dismiss himself when the study's door slid open to reveal a very sleepy and wobbly Hinata, in her light purple pajama outfit with some white frills. Everything fell silent as Hiashi stopped shifting his paperwork and observed his daughter with a blank expression, while Naruto was surprised into silence by this sudden intrusion. Hinata looked somewhat out of it, shifting her gaze sleepily between her father and her new friend. There. You are. Naruto-kun. Don't just walk off like that. She grumbled tiredly, while glaring lightly at Naruto through half-lidded eyes. Before the boy could say anything, she stumbled up next to him and flopped down to lay her upper half across his lap. She then hugged the blonde tightly around his waist, and one side of her head was fully pressed up against his chest. Naruto was shocked speechless by this sudden action. Stay. You're warm. She mumbled into his chest before falling asleep again with a cute snore, as his heartbeat lulled her back to dreamland. He was stone still for a few long and uncomfortable minutes before he realized Hiashi wasn't making any attempt at admonishing or removing Hinata. He slowly glanced up to see her father had gone back to his paperwork like his daughter was not even there. Hiashi-sama. May I politely inquire about what you are doing? He strained to not let his irritation at Hiashi's feigned obliviousness show through. I am just going over the expenses reports for the entire clan. Only I can approve these or the clan would fall apart. What would they do without me? Hiashi murmured with such blatantly fake innocence. Naruto swore he saw a ghost of a smirk on his face just now. My apologies if I am interrupting your very busy schedule, Hiashi-sama. He was impressed with himself for almost keeping the sarcasm out of his tone. However, as you can see with your all-seeing eyes. Okay, sarcasm is steeping in. One of your precious daughters is cuddling up tightly against me, and I can't move. The boy finished urgently, his cheeks red with embarrassment. I have noticed this, but thank you for pointing it out. However, I am very busy and cannot spare even a second. You will have to wake her if you wish to leave, or wait until I have finished, and I can put her to bed then. Hiashi replied coolly without missing a beat. Naruto narrowed his blue eyes. He just knew Hiashi was smirking like a dastardly madman on the inside. He sighed in defeat, but he wasn't going to play the clan head's game. He would just wake Hinata, who was sleeping with a heart-wrenchingly adorable expression, then apologize for rousing her and leave. I should inform you my daughter is what one would call the antithesis of a morning person. She has been known to repeatedly use her gentle fists to fend off anyone from waking her up. Her caretaker and I can attest to that, Hiashi warned calmly, as if he knew what his guest was thinking. Naruto stared quizzically down at Hinata's cute expression. How could she be so dangerous? He has to be bluffing. He decided to take a chance and tried to shake her shoulder just a slight bit. Before he knew it, there was a sharp whoosh, and he stiffened and sweated comically, as he now noted a small girl's hand, in a two-finger thrust, just an inch from his nose. The only thing that saved him was Hiashi effortlessly catching the hand by her wrist as if was nothing. Hinata's hand immediately went slack and slipped back to her body, as Hiashi let go and went back to the papers with an amused smirk on his face. Naruto trembled and sweated at how close he came to getting a strike to his face, and this girl was now innocently cuddling up tighter against his chest. Okay, I've changed my mind. This girl is dangerous. I am afraid my hand might slip next time, so I strongly recommend you do not risk another chance. She seems to be very attached to her sleep this night, Uzumaki-san. Hiashi spoke in a very amused tone. This truly was an entertaining evening for him. Hyuga Hiashi, you truly are a vicious, evil, and sadistic bastard. Was Naruto's sole thought as he sat stone still with this cute and dangerous girl curling up even more, and tightening her grip around his waist. He decided he didn't want to risk another stray Tenketsu strike this day, because these hurt like hell. I love this. Devious and ruthless. This might be a man after my own heart. Kurama exclaimed with a mock flutter of her eyelids, and broke into laughter at her container's suffering. It was 2 hours before very tired and nerve-wrecked Naruto left the compound for his home, with the damn fox cackling at his luck the whole way. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.